Why Senator Sanders and why now?
Well, I think what Senator Sanders represents and what his aspiration and what this campaign is all about is so much more than just running for president. This is truly about making an investment of our time and our energy in creating a mass movement of working class people in the United States, a revolution at the ballot box. And that is the only way that we are really going to be able to sustain and support systemic change, things like Medicare for all, tuition-free public colleges and universities, reinvestment and expansion in our access to housing and public housing in the United States. And so for me, that alongside with the fact that Senator Sanders has been fighting on these issues for decades, understands the inner workings of Congress, understands what defending these policies take, I think is a major part of my support. You
redoubled your efforts and committed to this campaign as Senator Sanders was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. Did that have to do with this timing of an endorsement, helping the senator out as this time of need?
For me, it wasn't even about helping the senator. It was a moment of clarity, I think, for me personally, in saying, what role do I want to play? And I want to be a part of a mass movement. And I want to be a part of a revolution of working class Americans. And so for me, it was less about being overly politically calculating. And it was more about the authenticity and clarity of that moment. I've volunteered and I worked on Senator Sanders' campaign in 2016, and I got to see how this campaign is actually organized. And the how of Senator Sanders' campaign is around mass movement politics. And I think that is something that is just thrilling and it's exciting and it's empowering for everyday people. It's also important to understand that movement politics necessitates an expansion of the electorate. I know that 2 weeks before my primary election, I was polling about 35 points behind my opponent. And that's because our strategy was not a polling strategy. Our strategy was based in expanding the electorate, which we did. So what we're doing, and I think what mass movement politics is it's very audacious in that we talk to people who don't vote. And we talk to unlikely voters. And we work on the work of transforming our democracy in addition to the actual ins and outs of a campaign.
So I think that was a pretty insightful response by Ocasio-Cortez, just given her, I guess, like where she's coming from, how she got here. I think this is not a surprise, even though a lot of reporters are questioning, okay, well, why Bernie Sanders? Even though, again, she volunteered for Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016.
See what the interviewer tried to do there, right?
Exactly.
Like tried to present this endorsement as some sort of strategy.
Right.
Like it's not calculating. Like it's not substantive endorsement.
Right.
Like
the best move for me or for him right now was to do it. And it's like, nah.
Like he campaigned for her and she campaigned for him. So it's like, this wouldn't be considered some sort of strategic move.
Mm-hmm. And what's larger than that too is not just that she's returning a favor. It's that they share the same ideology.
Yep.
I mean, maybe they disagree somewhere, but we know that on the heart of the issues, they see eye to eye on these issues. So again, it's not a surprise. I know some people want to question, well, why didn't you pick Warren? In this interviewer, he asked the question as well about Warren, because she did say some positive things about Warren, maybe some weeks, maybe some months ago. And she had nothing negative to say about Elizabeth Warren, but she said this is not about being against anybody else. This is about being for Bernie Sanders. And I believe that Bernie Sanders is the right way to go. So I'm going to be true to myself. So how could you complain? How could you criticize that?
But she pretty much stated it plain, stated her case as to why she endorsed Bernie Sanders. Like, he's the best candidate to further the interests of the working class.
Right. And then she also talked about mass movement politics, in which you have
versus
the
versus a polling strategy.
Right.
Essentially, that's what politics surrounds. Like polls.
All the time.
We have to invest all this time and money to influence the polls and not actually get people on the ground to influence people to vote or to move.
Right. These people are not polled. These people are not polled.
And so she essentially adjusted their strategy, and she won.
Right. We're going to show another clip of an interview. This one is CBS interviewing the two of them, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And in this interview, the question was going to come officially. We've seen some of that on social media. But the question about, hey, this is a white guy. Why does the woman of color endorse the white guy?
I'm going to be a little blunt with you, Congresswoman, and don't take offense, Senator, but as a woman of color, why back an old white guy? And is this the future of the party?
Yeah, I think I'm actually very excited about this partnership because it shows what we have to do in our country, is that we have to come together across race, across gender, across generation, and across class in order to establish our basic systems as rights.
Is there something you weren't hearing from the other candidates, namely the candidates of color, the female candidates in the race?
First and foremost, I think that my decision is not about any other candidate not being good. I don't think that in order for us to focus on these issues, we have to put anyone else down. That said, the senator, how he's going about this is very important, is that he is going into places, he goes into deep red states, he goes into forgotten communities. When he campaigned in 2016, he was one of the first presidential candidates since Bobby Kennedy during his campaign to come to the South Bronx. And that spoke to me because that kind of commitment is what we need in the United States. And frankly, I have confidence that at the end of this primary, we're all going to come together to defeat Donald Trump. And not just to defeat Donald Trump, but to defeat the systems of which he is a symptom. The corruption of our politics, the profound racism and classism that he takes advantage of in order to succeed.
I like the way she pivoted, actually.
Yeah, because I tell you what, she better than me.
Yeah.
She better than me. I know I probably wouldn't have been too diplomatic.
Yeah, about fielding that question.
Yeah, because I don't think that question was blunt. I think it was kind of a silly question.
Mm-hmm.
Go
more
ahead.
than silly.
Yeah,
more than silly. It's ignorant because again, I guess we have to believe that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because her skin looks a certain type of way, that she must back a candidate whose skin looks a certain type of way or whose gender is a certain type of way. She couldn't actually dissect these candidates based on what they have said, based on their past history, based on what they support and what they oppose. She couldn't actually do that objectively. She couldn't objectively look at these candidates. No, she has to actually not go more than skin deep. No, just look at the surface of these candidates. And if you see a woman, I guess that's good enough. If you see a person of color, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris.
Castro, I guess.
Yeah, if you see these people of color or women, these minority candidates, then, hey, I guess that's good enough to support them over an old white guy. Like, it's ridiculous to even ask the question. Like you said, it's very silly. Bernie Sanders is actually the best candidate for these communities, for women, for people of color. So that it's coming from an older white guy. Why should I be concerned about that?
Because doesn't it only, I guess, depend on the message? Shouldn't it only depend on the platform? Shouldn't it only depend on the agenda? Like it doesn't make sense because it's like reducing Bernie Sanders to this immutable characteristic that has little to do with his platform. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if Bernie Sanders had a platform that specifically catered to a certain demographic, let's say white men, then the question would make sense.
But I don't think AOC would be supporting him.
Exactly. That's why it doesn't make any sense. That's why it doesn't make any sense.
She asked is this the future of the country? Is what the future of the country?
Future of the country?
The future of the country, what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and even Bernie Sanders, what they want the future of the country to be is raising the standard of living of people across this country. They want progressivism to be the future of this country.
You know what?
Not a gender.
You know
not
what
a skin color. None of that.
You know what they're trying to do because not to not to let this interviewer off the hook, but I've actually seen some people on Twitter, especially like liberal Twitter, white liberal Twitter, make this argument. I've actually seen not just white liberal Twitter make this argument, but actually conservatives make this argument. Like conservatives and white liberals, white neoliberals are actually making the same argument. Like they're calling AOC and Ilhan Omar hypocrites because there's this kind of, I guess, misguided or distorted, distorted idea of their view about the country, right? Hey, because this is the message here. You hate white people.
Yeah.
So why are you supporting one? That's the message here. That's the message here. That's why the question seems valid, because their idea of what people like AOC think is very distorted.